Hi, I'm Odalis, and last week at my own mother's dinner table, they called me a betrayer, not because I lied, not because I stole, but because I wouldn't buy my sister a brand new Lexus for her wedding. They looked me in the eye and said I was tearing the family apart. Funny, because I'm the one who paid for the roof over their heads. And they knew, but they erased me anyway from the guest list, from the wedding, from the family photos until I reminded them who really owned the house they were decorating with flowers. You ever been forgotten on purpose by the people you built everything for? This one's personal. Before we dive in, let us know what time you're listening to this and where from. Drop a comment. It helps me feel connected to others who've been through similar situations. And trust me, my story has twists you won't believe. I'd spent the better part of the morning folding napkins, not just folding, shaping. I always liked doing something with my hands when the day felt emotionally charged. And tonight's dinner had a smell about it, not burnt food. No, Ramona never burned anything. It was the thick, unspoken tension you could almost taste in a southern house that tried too hard to act like it wasn't falling apart. I arranged the pale linen napkins in a swirl that tucked like a rose. Soft blush on white porcelain plates, just like they showed on those southern living spreads. But I didn't expect anyone to notice, and I was right. By 6:45 p.m., the dining room was full. Zanea sat directly across from me, surrounded by glowing congratulations and the sound of glass tapping glass. Her diamond ring caught every flicker of chandelier light. On purpose, I suspected. Her laughter was high and practiced, and Ramona, our mother, beamed like she'd birthed a Kennedy. There I was across the table, same bloodline, same room, but a completely different orbit. I smiled when necessary, nodded when prompted, and quietly passed the casserole dish without being thanked. I watched them all carefully. Not bitter, just observant. You learn a lot that way. Dinner rolled on like a well-rehearsed scene until Zanea placed her wineglass down with a tap. So, she said sweetly, we're thinking a December wedding, something small, classy, and quick. She looked straight at me. 3 months from now. There were oohs and how lovelies and even a low whistle from Sterling, her fiancé, who had no clue about the storm brewing behind her eyes. Ramona didn't miss a beat. She dabbed the corner of her mouth with a napkin, one of mine. I noticed, crumpled like a fast food tissue, and turned to me with a look as casual as her tone wasn't. You know what would be lovely, she said, if you gifted her a car for the big day. A Lexus, maybe. You know, something dependable like you always are. The room fell into a sudden silence, like someone had accidentally turned down the volume. Zania blinked twice, her smile turning to feigned humility. Oh, I mean, only if you wanted to, Odie. But everyone keeps saying how you're always so thoughtful. I blinked once, twice, like maybe I misheard. But no one laughed. No one said, just kidding. No one pulled me aside and whispered, don't worry, it's ridiculous. I've got your back. They just stared. My hand remained wrapped around my water glass, knuckles tightening. I didn't know that was something being discussed, I said calmly. I hadn't planned for that. I need to think about it. Lowell, my father, gave a deep exhale, that slow, disappointed father breath he reserved for things like car dents and report cards. Ramona touched her chest like I'd shot her with a dart. You mean you're saying no? I'm saying I need to think. That's a lot to consider. Zanea's lower lip trembled. Sterling looked down at his plate like the green beans had become uncomfortable. I always knew you looked down on me, Zanea whispered loud enough for the room to hear. You act like you're above all this, above me. No one said anything like that, I replied, still calm. But my appetite had vanished. Ramona leaned in, all wounded elegance. You've always had trouble giving, Odalis, ever since you were a little girl. You hoard your kindness like it's something to be rationed. Lol, ever the final voice, spoke without looking at me. After all we've done for you. There it was, the family gavel. I took a sip of water and tried not to let it shake in my hand. This wasn't the first time they'd cornered me like this. Last Christmas, it was money for Zenaya's business venture that never materialized. Before that, it was co-signing her apartment lease that I ended up paying for 3 months when she decided to find herself in Miami. Each time I tried to establish boundaries, gentle conversations about financial responsibility, offers to help in ways that didn't involve blank checks, I was met with tearful accusations of being cold and not understanding what family means. My therapist had a term for it, emotional blackmail, but knowing the term didn't make it hurt less when it came from the people who were supposed to love you most. There was no yelling, no storming off, just silence thick as syrup while forks clinked and eyes avoided mine. No one asked me how work was. No one asked what I'd brought for dessert, though I'd baked the pie on the sideboard myself. No one used the folded napkins, except for one, crumpled now, lying on Ramona's lap like she was oblivious to how she dismissed the time it took to make it. I didn't expect thanks. I'd long ago stopped hoping for it, but I didn't expect crucifixion for setting a boundary either. By morning, my phone was already lit up like a Christmas tree. Notifications from people I hadn't heard from since high school, old co-workers, even one of my dad's cousins who lived in Florida. Some were vague, others less so. One message simply read, "Hey, you okay?" Then came a text from Amina, a friend from college who knew both me and Zanaya. She just sent a screenshot. No explanation. It was a post from Zanaya's Instagram story, a picture of her wiping away a single tear, perfectly lit, captioned in that casual martyrdom tone she'd perfected when your own sister thinks your happiness is too expensive. She didn't name me. Of course, she didn't. That would have been too direct. But the comment said enough. Families should support each other. Some people let money go to their heads. Always knew you were the kind one. I felt heat rise in my chest. Not the kind that makes you want to punch a wall. No, this was quieter, slower, like someone had slipped a stone into my throat and I couldn't get it out. A second message from Amina followed. Another screenshot. This one was from a Facebook group my mother ran for our extended family. Someone, Zanaya clearly, had posted a cropped photo from our private group chat. Just one line of my text from the night before clipped perfectly out of its thread. That's not something I'm comfortable doing. No mention of the full context. No mention of Ramona's setup at the dinner table. No mention of me being ambushed. Just those 10 words. Plain, chilling. The comments under the photo were worse. She could have just said, yes, it's a car, not a kidney. Wow, cold. That's what happens when you forget where you came from. I stared at it for a long time, not moving, just watching my name, my intentions, my quiet life being twisted into a meme for people who didn't even like me to begin with. For the rest of the day, I didn't cook, didn't clean, didn't answer the phone. Instead, I sat on my back porch with a chipped mug of black tea and stared at my car, my own car, parked in the driveway. A 10-year-old Toyota Camry I'd bought used during the year I worked nights at the diner and weekends running invoices for a dental lab. Every scratch on its door had a story. It wasn't fancy. It was mine. I remembered what it felt like that first time I slid into the front seat and turned the key. I didn't cry then, but I almost did now. It wasn't always like this. There was a time when I thought my family saw me, really saw me. But somewhere along the way, I became the solution to problems, not a person with needs of my own. 3 years ago, I tried to have a real conversation with Ramona about how her comments about my weight made me feel. She'd listened, nodded, and then, a week later, told a cousin over the phone that I was too sensitive and looking for things to be upset about. I'd overheard from the kitchen. The worst part wasn't the betrayal, it was realizing it wasn't new. In therapy, Dr. Winters had helped me see the pattern, how I'd been trained since childhood to be the responsible one, the fixer, the steady hand, how Zanea's emotional outbursts were rewarded with attention and concessions, while my reliability was taken for granted, how setting boundaries wasn't selfish, it was necessary. I was still working on believing that last part. At exactly 9:41 p.m., my phone buzzed with a new message. No contact name, just a photo. It took me a second to realize what I was looking at. Zania standing in front of my house, my second property, the one I bought in the outskirts of Smyrna, and quietly offered to the family to use as needed after Daddy's stroke. She stood there in a white jumpsuit, smiling with her hand over her belly like a maternity chute. The caption read, "Venue locked. Can't wait to walk down this driveway." I didn't even realize I was holding my breath until the edges of my vision blurred. That was my house, my name on the deed, paid off with years of bonuses, sacrificed vacations, and 1,000 skipped lattes. It was one of those March Fridays where the wind still felt like winter, even though spring was already on the calendar. I had left work early, papers still warm from the printer when my mother called me crying. "It's Zanea," she'd said between sniffles. "She's going through a hard patch. She and Sterling, they need a place, something stable." There was no direct ask, just the heaviness of expectation sitting in every pause. A week later, I wired $40,000 to cover the down payment for a two-bedroom ranch on Maple Trace Lane. I signed everything myself. Ramona hugged me once in the driveway, said, "You've always been the practical one." Then she turned and shouted to Zanaya, who was taking selfies with Sterling on the porch. No party, no announcement, not even a welcome mat with my name, just silence. But now she was using it for her wedding venue and tagging it as if it were hers. By mid-morning, I had showered, dressed, and pulled into the neighborhood with my car windows cracked halfway. I didn't get out immediately. I watched from across the street behind a row of dogwood trees. Caterers were already unloading silver trays. Someone was stringing up white lights around the porch railing. In the yard, a rented canopy had been erected, and a white banner fluttered gently in the breeze. Zanea and Sterling, 1209. I didn't see anyone I recognized, which was for the best. But when I finally stepped out of the car, a young man in a headset glanced up and smiled at me. "You the planner?" he asked, holding a clipboard. I blinked. "Excuse me, the wedding planner," he repeated, glancing back toward the house. I didn't answer. My mouth opened, closed. I turned and walked away before I said something that would set the grass on fire. I didn't drive home right away. I went to the library first, the one near Smyrna Square with the crooked parking lines. I sat in the back corner by the local history section, took out my phone, and pulled up the email thread from 2 years ago. Found it, March 18th, subject line, purchase confirmation 20748 Maple Trace. The PDF was still there, signed, sealed, transferred. Later that night, I opened the file cabinet in my study, second drawer down. I hadn't touched it in months. I flipped past bank statements and tax folders, then stopped when I saw the manila envelope. Inside was the original deed, stamped and notarized. My name, my wiring confirmation. A sticky note attached by the notary still clung to the edge, faded but clear. Confirmed wire transfer complete. No co-signers. No one else had signed it. Just me. The next day, I drove back to the house, this time with purpose. I parked directly in the driveway and walked to the front door, using the key I still had. The house was empty. Thankfully, I walked through each room slowly, noting the changes: new curtains, rearranged furniture, framed photos of Zanea and Sterling everywhere. In the kitchen, wedding planning magazines were spread across the island, along with color swatches and a guest list printout. Curiosity made me look. I flipped through the pages, scanning for my name. Nothing. Not on the main list. Not on the still to confirm section. Nowhere. I moved to the junk drawer in the kitchen, the one where they kept spare keys, takeout menus, and odds and ends. Beneath a stack of mail and old receipts, I spotted the corner of a small red leather notebook, the kind my father used to keep mileage logs in when he drove long haul back in the 90s. I flipped it open. Inside were notes in my father's cramped handwriting: household expenses, repairs, who paid for what. And then, on a page dated March 20th, 2 years ago, Al wired $40K for down payment, says she doesn't want credit. Al O'Dallas would. I read that line 3 times. So they knew. They always knew. They didn't forget me. They just decided silence was easier, more convenient, better for the narrative that made Zanea look cherished and me disposable. I whispered. You knew. You all knew. But there were no tears left for that. No ache in my chest. Just a quiet rearranging of intent. I took the red book and slid it into my bag. Back in my car, I opened my email app, attached the deed and a PDF scan of the notebook page, and typed a short message to the event planner's contact. Subject: event continuation, Maple Trace property. You may continue with the event, but there will be a lease agreement. Rent due by Friday. Please respond to confirm. I hit send. I didn't feel triumphant, but I didn't feel erased either. Not anymore. The planner didn't respond right away, but when she did, it was just one line. They're going to freak out. I didn't reply. I powered off my phone, set it face down on the kitchen counter, and just stood there, hands gripping the edge of the sink. A breeze drifted in through the half-open window, carrying the scent of cut grass and roses from the neighbor's yard. It was strangely peaceful for a moment, when everything else felt like it was cracking apart inside me. The next morning, I woke up to an email from an unknown address. It had no subject line, just one attachment: a voice memo file. I hesitated before playing it, but when I finally did, Sterling's voice came through, soft, uneasy. Hi, O'Dallas. I don't know if this will make a difference or if you even want to hear from me, but I just wanted you to know I'm aware about the house. Zanea told me shortly after we got engaged. She said you insisted on keeping it quiet, that you didn't want credit, but she also swore me to secrecy. I didn't agree, but I didn't say anything. That's on me. I'm sorry. He paused near the end like he wanted to say more, but couldn't find the words. Then it cut out. I stared at the screen for a long time after it ended. My thumb hovered over the delete button. Then I changed my mind and tapped save. That evening, I tried calling Ramona. I thought maybe, just maybe, we could talk about this like adults. Set up a proper rental agreement for the wedding. Acknowledge what was really happening. She answered on the third ring. Well, it's about time, she said, as if I'd kept her waiting for something. Zanea's been beside herself. When are you going to apologize? I took a deep breath. Mom, we need to talk about the house on Maple Trace, about the wedding. What about it? Everything's finally coming together. Don't you dare try to ruin this for her. It's my house. Mom, I own it. You know that. A long pause. What are you talking about? I found Dad's notebook, the one where he wrote down that I wired the money for the down payment. You've known all along. Another pause. Longer this time. Then, you offered it to us. You said we could use it. Use it, yes, not claim it as your own. Not plan a wedding there without even asking me. Not exclude me from that same wedding. Oh, for heaven's sake. Oh, Dallas, it's always about you, isn't it? Your sister is finally happy. Can't you just let her have this? I closed my eyes, feeling a familiar tightness in my chest. I'm willing to work something out, a formal rental agreement for the wedding, but I need acknowledgement that it's my property, and I need to be included in. She cut me off. You know what your problem is. You've always been jealous of Zanaya. Always. She shines in ways you never could, and you can't stand it. The line went quiet after that. Not because she'd hung up, but because I had. 2 days later, I received a text from Zanaya. We need to talk. Come to the house tomorrow. 2 p.m. I showed up at 2:05, steeling myself for another ambush. But when I walked in, it was just Zanaya, sitting at the kitchen island, scrolling through her phone. Took you long enough, she said without looking up. I'm here now, I replied, keeping my voice neutral. Let's talk. She finally glanced up, her eyes narrowing. Sterling told me he messaged you. He had no right. He was being honest. Something rare in this family. She scoffed. Always so dramatic. Look, I don't know what your problem is, but this wedding is happening here. It's all planned. Deposits are paid. It's my house, Zanaya. My name is on the deed. You gave it to us, she snapped, slamming her hand on the counter. I let you use it. There's a difference. So what? Now you want money? Is that it always about money with you? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. That's rich, coming from the person asking for a Lexus. Her face flushed. Then, without warning, she picked up her phone and started recording. Say that again, she challenged, camera pointed at me. Say how you're trying to ruin my wedding over money. I stared at her, suddenly seeing everything so clearly. The manipulation, the performance, the way she'd been crafting narratives about me for years. I turned and walked toward the door. I'll have my lawyer contact you about the lease terms, I said over my shoulder. You wouldn't dare, she called after me. Mom and Dad will never forgive you. I paused at the door, hand on the knob. Forgiveness requires seeing someone first. You all stopped seeing me a long time ago. The following Sunday, I made a quiet plan to visit a new women's group at a church across town. It had been a while since I walked into a sanctuary. I guess I just needed something still and quiet, where no one expected anything from me but my presence. But when I pulled into the parking lot, I noticed something familiar. Too familiar. 3 cars. I recognized my father's truck, Ramona's SUV, and Zanaya's sedan parked in front of the adjacent event hall. I blinked, then remembered. This was the day of the pre-wedding brunch. Somehow, I had marked it wrong in my calendar. Of all places to show up by accident, before I could reverse out, someone tapped my window. It was my niece, 8-year-old Lily, her hair tied with pink ribbons. She grinned. Aunt O, she chirped. I got out, crouched down to her level, smiled. Hey, sweetheart. She leaned in, innocent as ever, and said, Mommy says you only care about money. That's why nobody wants you at the wedding. I paused, not in shock, just in realization. It was confirmation of what I already knew. Children don't invent cruelty. They repeat what they hear. I met her eyes, calm and even. Tell Mommy I'll stop caring about money the day they stop using mine. She tilted her head, confused. I kissed her on the forehead and gently nudged her back toward the crowd. I didn't go inside. I drove off without looking back. That afternoon, I contacted an attorney. No more playing nice. No more hoping they'd suddenly see the light and treat me with basic respect. The attorney, a straightforward woman named Marissa Klein, reviewed my documents and nodded. Clear-cut case of unauthorized use. She said, "We can issue a formal notice immediately." "What about the wedding?" I asked. "I don't want to be cruel." She gave me a level look. "Ms. Wood, from what you've told me, they've been cruel to you for years. This isn't about revenge. It's about establishing boundaries that should have been there all along." 3 days later, with formal legal notice in hand, I drove back to the house on Maple Trace. Multiple cars were parked outside another wedding planning meeting. I assumed. I knocked on my own front door. The knock didn't echo long. Within seconds, the door creaked open, and there she was, Ramona still in her pearls, robe tied too tight like she was afraid anything might slip out. Emotion, truth, control. Her eyes locked with mine, widening in that familiar blend of surprise and contempt she never bothered to mask. But before she could form words, I heard shuffling behind her. Zanea stepped into view, wrapped in ivory satin like she was already in rehearsal. She didn't say a word, just gave me a smirk, one that didn't reach her eyes. "Morning," I said, voice level. "This house is no longer available for your event. You're trespassing." The robe's sheen didn't hide the way Zanea stiffened. Ramona blinked, slow, then faster, like she was processing a language she hadn't heard since decency left her vocabulary. Sterling appeared in the hallway just in time. He stopped mid-step like he'd run into a glass door. He didn't say anything either, but his face turned the color of regret. I reached into my bag and held out a sealed envelope, offered it to Zanea like a party invitation. "What's this?" she asked. "Legal notice." I answered, "Cease and desist. Unauthorized use of private property. Also a reminder that your insurance doesn't cover you here." Zanea laughed. It was hollow and high-pitched like a child trying to sound brave. "You're kidding." "No," I said. "I've been quiet. Doesn't mean I'm dumb." Ramona stepped forward then, voice cracking into a shrill pitch. "You're destroying your sister's happiness." I looked her in the eye, for once, not flinching, not flailing. "I built it," I said, calm and cool. "I'm just reclaiming my foundation." They didn't move, just stood there, stunned in their own foyer, like strangers surprised to see the landlord. I turned, ready to leave, but something caught my eye as I passed the hallway. The photo wall. It used to be filled with all of us. Years of holidays, birthdays, graduations, and I was always in the corner. A smile too soft to notice. Now, every frame remained, polished and centered, but not one showed me. I paused, walked toward the side table where the mail always piled up, opened the drawer. There it was, my photo. The only one where I was in her bridal party back when I thought she'd be happy for me someday. Dust-coated, glass cracked, tucked beneath pizza flyers and expired coupons. I took it out, brushed it gently with my sleeve, looked at it for just a moment, then placed it face down on the kitchen counter, not in rage, just in acknowledgement. It wasn't the missing photo that broke something in me. It was that no one noticed it was gone. A week passed. No word from any of them. Then, a manila envelope appeared on my doorstep. No return address. No explanation. Inside, I found my RSVP envelope, the one that had never been sent to me in the first place, and tucked inside a torn version of the wedding invitation. My name had been scribbled in hastily in black ink, uneven lettering, no flourish, and behind it a check, $40,000 unsigned, no note, just paper that tried to erase everything it had once begged for. I folded the check once, placed it under my coffee mug, and thought, this is what guilt without accountability looks like. The paper sat there all morning untouched as I went about my routine. Coffee, a quick rinse of laundry, a glance out the kitchen window. Georgia light crept through the blinds. making the check glow like something it wasn't a peace offering. Around noon, I heard the rustle of another envelope dropping through the mail slot. This one had my father's handwriting on it. Shaky, rigid letters on the front, as if he hadn't written my name in a while and had to remember how it curved. Inside was a folded piece of yellowed stationery, the kind he used when he still cared about letters. He dated it the night before. Odalis, you paid for that house. You paid for more than any of us ever admitted. I've rewritten the will. It's yours again. The house and everything tied to it. We did what we had to. Dad, that was it. No, I'm sorry. Just logistics dressed as repentance. As if paperwork could wipe away the erasure, the gossip, the years of being the scapegoat. Still, I read it twice. Underneath the letter were legal documents. Clean, notarized, stamped. The property now placed in trust. Fully titled to me. The timing wasn't lost on me either. The documents were signed just 24 hours before the wedding rehearsal. I pressed my lips together and whispered out loud, "So, this is your idea of making it right, just in time to protect your daughter's Instagram venue." I called my lawyer. The cease and desist. "Is it still in effect?" "Until you say otherwise," she confirmed. "Good. Let it stand." Meanwhile, the community grapevine had been busy. A local gossip page called Peachy Secrets had somehow gotten hold of screenshots from Zanea's social media alongside photos of the legal notice. The comments section was a battlefield of opinions. Some defended Zanaya. Blood is thicker than water. Family should come first. It's just a house. Others surprisingly took my side. Using someone's property without permission is stealing, family or not. The sister sounds entitled. Who demands Alexis as a gift? I didn't engage. I logged off all social media, changed my number, and focused on healing. 2 weeks passed. The wedding date came and went, through mutual friends. I heard it had been postponed indefinitely. Zanea had lost a sponsorship deal with a local boutique. Sterling was having second thoughts. I didn't feel victory, just a strange, hollow peace. Then, at 2:13 a.m., one Tuesday, my phone lit up with a voice message from an unknown number. Zanea's voice cracked as she whispered, "I didn't think you'd actually walk away." I sat there staring at the screen, and maybe she didn't. But I did, and I kept walking all the way into a life I finally owned. I listened twice, then drafted a single reply. I walked away because staying cost me more than money. I blocked the number afterward, not out of spite, but because healing has no space for echoes of manipulation. 2 weeks passed. The house felt different. Not heavier, but rooted. I'd started minor renovations. A fresh coat of paint here, new cabinet knobs there. Nothing showy, just choices that were mine. I converted the guest room, Zanea's old room, into a quiet study, replaced the pink drapes with warm linen ones, took down the childhood posters, and hung shelves with worn books, a record player, and a photo of me with Aunt Marina at a lake in Asheville. I didn't keep any other family pictures, not out of malice, just peace. I began hosting Sunday dinners, simple ones, roast chicken, mashed sweet potatoes, and salad from the garden out back. My aunt came every week. Sometimes a neighbor or two joined. We didn't talk about the wedding. We didn't need to. I joined a support group for people healing from family trauma. Every Wednesday evening in a church basement, sharing stories over styrofoam cups of lukewarm coffee. It helped to know I wasn't alone, that my experience had a name, that healing was possible. Dr. Winters, my therapist, noted the change in me during our sessions. "You're speaking from your center now," she said one day. "Not from the edge where they pushed you," one Sunday, After everyone had left and dishes were drying on the rack, I poured myself a glass of wine and walked into the foyer. There, near the front door, hung the deed. I'd framed it not for pride, but as a quiet promise to myself that I would never again forget my worth, that I had always been more than the helper, more than the quiet one. I had been the foundation. As evening slid into twilight, I stood at the window and watched a young couple touring the house across the street. The woman held her partner's hand, gesturing toward the porch as if imagining rocking chairs and laughter. Her smile was soft, hopeful. She looked up and saw me. I waved gently. She waved back. Then I looked down. My coffee mug still rested on the check, the one my parents had sent, unsigned. Of course, I'd never moved it. I didn't need to. It served its purpose right there every day. A little reminder that guilt without ownership is just another form of control. I would never cash it, and I would never return to who I'd been. I closed my eyes, letting the quiet settle deep in my chest. Then, just before heading to bed, I picked up the folded napkin one last time and placed it on my desk in the study. It didn't belong in the drawer anymore. It belonged in the room I built for myself. Sometimes silence isn't weakness. It's the sound of finally hearing yourself. They called me selfish. I call it survival. And no, I don't regret taking the house back because I was never the thief. As evening settled around my house, my real house, the one I actually live in, I stood by the window watching a young couple touring the property across the street. They walked hand in hand, pointing at the porch, imagining their future there. I found myself smiling. I glanced down at my coffee table where that unsigned $40,000 check from my parents still sat under my mug. I never moved it. I never cashed it. It serves as a daily reminder that guilt without accountability is just another form of control. The framed deed to the Maple Trace house now hangs in my foyer not as a trophy, but as a promise to myself that I'll never again let someone convince me that setting boundaries makes me the villain. Sometimes silence isn't weakness, it's the sound of finally hearing yourself. They called me selfish. I call it survival. And no, I don't regret taking the house back because I was never the thief. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button and share your own experiences in the comments. Have you ever had to stand up to family who took you for granted? What boundaries did you set? Remember, your story matters too, and someone out there needs to hear they're not alone. Don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories every Wednesday. And if you want to hear what happened when my sister tried to contact me again 6 months later, well, that's another story for another time. See you next week.